Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. I'm your co-host, Richmond Raceway this weekend, since we are racing at Richmond Raceway. And as always, the man, the myth, the legend behind the curtain. He's here in front of the camera. Sean Engel. Please give Sean a follow on X at SeanE247. Remember, that's spelled S-E-A in the fun short way on X. And he's always dropping some good hints to our betting and DFS action. And as always, we're here to talk NASCAR and DFS and betting. We just came off of the road course, and we're heading to a short oval. But before we get into that, Sean, it is football season. So we better give Fantasy Guru the plug they deserve. We want to thank the Elite Plus Network and FantasyGuru.com that allows us to do the RaceGuru Thunder Hour podcast. If you head over to FantasyGuru.com, please click subscribe. There is a plethora of packages for you to choose from. Some include our training camp that is coming up on Friday, August 15th. And hey, if you happen to tune into this and it's after the training camp, you can go back and rewatch the training camp at your leisure, where we have a full day of coverage covering all things fantasy football by our entire staff at FantasyGuru.com, including the one and only Jeff Mans. But Sean, you got any other plugs for NFL packages? Because I'll be honest, there were so many of them, I gave up trying to break them all down.
There's just so much NFL content. There's training camp going on. I mean, there's so much that I don't see why people can't find something that isn't tailor-made for them if you just go over to FantasyGuru.com right there, Rich. I mean, seriously. We've said it before on this podcast that good luck trying to keep up with everything, because there's just a lot on offer right there.
You cannot consume all the content on the website, and that's specifically football. But if you try to consume all the sports we cover, esports, baseball, basketball, hockey, racing, you can't consume it all. So, hey, it's all right. Pick your favorites. Go to what works for you. Everybody on staff here at FantasyGuru.com, our goal is to do one thing: help you win money. That's our goal. That's our plan, and have fun. Remember, we all do this as a game to have fun, so don't lose sight of that. Sean, I will be honest, I did not see really much of anything from Watkins Glen. So feel free to break down your takes from Watkins Glen and your reactions, other than, hey, Connor Zilic, let's learn to take the net and put it inside the car. I think that might have played into how your foot got caught. We're all thankful you didn't break your neck, but the collarbone injury is going to ruin the rest of this year, which is unfortunate because wow, was that young man on fire this season.
Connor Zilic, he was just on, I'd almost consider in some ways a generational streak right there, because after he got back to the car from the first time he got injured this season, from that back injury from Talladega.
Forgot about that.
He ended up not even finishing outside the top 5, even up until this very race, which is absolutely insane for any driver to do in any series, let alone the Xfinity series right there, Rich. And, he's got 6 victories on the season, so we know he's going to be able to make a run at the playoffs no matter what happens, for as long as he recovers in time. But, he may not be performing at the same potential level, though, but it remains to be seen. But injuries were a bit of a story, as we'll be talking about right here, not just for Connor Zilic, but even the Truck Series has an injury that I'll be mentioning later, because it does play into the slate for this week right there, Rich.
Yes, there was a couple injuries, a couple of waiver deals. I'm not sold Connor will be back for the playoffs, to be honest with you, Sean. Collarbones, they did do the surgery and the pins and all that, which should help the recovery. I'm assuming they're looking at a 4 to 6 week window. But, when you do this for a living, I don't know how much range of motion, how much strength, all that stuff goes into it. And quite frankly, the young man has a very bright future. So I hope they don't rush him back just because of the playoffs.
Well, it remains to be seen. We're getting updates as we go along right there, and Connor Zilic is on his way to recovering as it is. The Xfinity Series does not race this week, so he has an extra week right there in order to help with the recovery process as it stands. But, good luck to Connor on his recovery. In the meantime, though, there was a few other notes from Watkins Glen this week there. The Truck Series race. Yeah, all 3 series were at the Glen this past weekend right there, Rich. I didn't catch as much of the Truck Series race as I would have liked, but to be expected, it ended up with Corey Heim in victory lane right there, Rich. So there you go.
Always Heim time.
Heim time once again right there. Xfinity, as mentioned, Connor Zilic ended up getting the victory. It was his 6th of the year. And he did end up having to battle the guy who ended up winning the Cup race and practically dominated the Cup race for a good amount of it right there, Shane Van Gisbergen, who gets his 4th consecutive Road Course Cup Series victory right there. And really, he had not much competition in that fact. Really, the only driver there that even gave him any kind of run for his money was Brian Blaney towards the beginning of the race right there, Rich.
I did not see any of it. I will take your word for it. That sounds about right. I did see the end of the Xfinity event, which, it was good to see Connor win because he kind of had it wrapped up and then some chaos took place. He got kind of nudged out of the way. I know he didn't mean to dump SVG and credit SVG in the interview for basically saying, look, I got to go look at it. It's a teammate. Let me look at it before I make a statement. I felt like Jamie McMurray did a pretty good job of saying, look, I try to call it like I see it. I thought Austin Hill a couple of weeks ago did it intentionally. This week, I don't think he did. And he basically felt the same way about Zilic and SVG's incident. And I will take his word for it. My only takeaway, Sean, I hate that we have so much paved runoff at Watkins Glen now. I can't believe I'm saying this from like 5-6 years ago when I was like, oh, I'm tired of the rock pits. I think we need to bring them back. I don't remember who it was that said it, but, keeping the car on the track was always a challenge, especially for these NASCAR drivers at the road courses. And now with the paved runoffs, it's not really a thing. I want to see the rock pit and the sand traps come back.
Well, we do see sand play a role in Sonoma as it is there, and we do get some good racing there sometimes. I'd be open to bringing that back to see how it goes with this generation of car, a little bit in these types of drivers, Rich. I'd be open to it.
I mean, especially you look at Watkins Glen in turn 1, that used to be a sketchy area if you overdrove it. Now they basically are using the shoulder all the way almost out to the wall. And you couldn't do that before. And I think that's led to incidents like we saw with both Zilic and SVG and the one with Austin Hill and McDowell, that if they were forced to keep it on the track within track limits, because I hate when we have the officials call track limits like we see at COTA. I can't stand that. Make the track, if you want to make it tough for them to stay on the track, then design the track as such. Otherwise, go where you can put the car, and if that means getting in the dirt a little bit, we've seen that. I miss the fact that cars would get stuck in the sand traps when they screwed up. And I understand it led to cautions and people got mad about when the cautions fell and all that, but it's how the cookie crumbles, man. It's racing and racing luck. And I think we've tried to sterilize it almost too much.
I think that's a valid take right there. I'm not against that take one bit, I'd say. Especially because, really, anything in order to drum up the excitement a little bit more and make these drivers have to challenge themselves, I see as nothing but a good thing, especially with how the road course racing is in the Cup Series. Because, well, to be honest, that Cup race was a snoozer. Big-time snoozer.
The scuttlebutt about, from Kyle Petty and some of these other guys, oh, it's not that bad. This car's been great. You don't know what you're watching. I don't know, man. I've gone from I really didn't care for the road courses to I look forward to the road courses to I'm really over the road courses. There's too many, in my opinion. It's not a great product. And I'm sorry. For the fans that are crying for more, especially some of these newer fans, go watch IMSA. NASCAR was an oval. I'm tired of people saying, well, NASCAR got its roots in the back roads of run and shine. That's where the drivers got their egos and their motivation from. But the first NASCAR races, including Daytona Beach, was an oval. It's been ovals. And I'm a little over this misremembering or trying to tweak history to fit a narrative because people don't know. I will be more than happy to go back and show you. It's ovals, it's ovals, it's ovals.
I still think it should be a majority ovals, but I do not mind road courses if the product is good. This is my problem, Rich. The product isn't good right now, and it's
Well,
because of the car, and that's to blame. I'm gonna say.
okay, but let's just assume it is good. If it is good, Sean, what's your number of road races you'd like to see?
I'd say my perfect range is basically between 4 to 5, maybe. Four probably I think is like the perfect number.
I don't want to be above 4. I think 2 might be too little. I understand Junior's point on that. I think 4 is the threshold, in my opinion.
I think 4 is the perfect number because it's just enough where road courses are going to have to matter at least a little bit, and the teams are going to have to focus on it, but not too much to the point where it overtakes the road courses being about as much as the ovals narrative. I'd say it's a perfect balance right there, and you could easily fit it with about 4 good road course tracks. I'd say too. You could keep Watkins Glen and Sonoma, get us back to Road America, and you know what? I'd be open towards maybe a rotating road course race, maybe between like Coda or the Roval at times, even too, as the 4th.
You know, there's plenty of decent road courses out there. I'd be okay getting rid of the Roval, to be honest. But
that's fine.
You could talk me into it. Well, that's probably enough road course racing. Should we get into the news, Sean? Because there's been not a lot of news, but some interesting stories this week.
Just before we do real quick, I'm just going to quickly recap on the show last week between me and Mark we did call out a few drivers that did well on DFS. Particularly, I called out Christopher Bell as being a good driver pick for Cup this past week. He finished as the runner-up. Chris Buescher, both of us, me and Mark, predicted last week that he'd have a good day. He ended up finishing in the 3rd spot. Mark did nail that SVG, of course, was going to basically be a DFS darling right there. I tried to go a little contrarian to that approach last week, but I didn't fully pay off right there. But what did pay off, though, was there were a couple of betting hits this past week, too. Chris Buescher getting a top 5. I nailed that call. Chase Briscoe getting a top 10. Nailed that call right there. And then this one was a bit of a sweat, but Zane Smith ended up beating Carson Hocevar, like I said. It just wasn't from Carson taking himself out like he's done at other road courses, but Zane legitimately beat him out by 1 position right there, Rich.
Excellent. And hey, I said in the overview, you had 2 choices for Sunday's DFS slate. Either use SVG, which you were going to have to get real creative with the rest of the lineup to be different because everybody was going to use SVG, or completely fade him and try to be completely contrarian. That, in my opinion, was the biggest choice to make. I don't think I could have faded SVG, but if you're going to take down a tournament, you got to be contrarian.
Yeah, I would say if you were playing multiple lineups, you had to do a bit of a split approach in order to get the most out of all the possibilities for DFS this past week, Rich. Like some lineups with SVG to anchor it, some without, and just go from there as it is. 2 other things to mention. Betting winner, Mark and I both nailed that within our core 4 betting winners for SVG. And then Mark also nailed Chris Buescher winning the group winner bet that he posted on this show last week of Group C, Chris Buescher being the top finisher of that group. All right, now let's get into the news of the week right there, Rich. I put this one on because I knew I was going to have you on, and I knew that I think we can get some interesting discussion out of this point here. But the report out there is saying Caden Honeycutt is going to replace Corey Heim in the number 11 Tricon Garage Toyota in 2026. I got to get your reaction on this. What do you think?
Good on Honeycutt. The tea leaves then tells me Heim's got an opportunity somewhere else. The rumor I saw recently was Heim to Spire. Now, that's interesting to me because I don't know how long the contract is with Heim and Toyota. I don't know if Heim basically said, look, I'm going to start shopping around because I'm getting tired of being buried here in the truck series when I feel like I deserve an opportunity elsewhere. The question I have is, which Spire team? Are we talking Cup? We talking Xfinity? What are we talking here with Spire, and which ride is it? And what's the next domino to fall? Good on Caden Honeycutt. I don't fault Nice for making the move, but I felt like that was kind of unfair because Honeycutt was really trying to get into the playoffs and was doing a decent job of fighting in that. And I don't think Honeycutt's on par with Heim, but I do want to see Honeycutt in some top equipment. And quite frankly, Tricon, in my opinion, they were pretty good with Taylor Gray, but the rest of the team, as far as driver talent, I'm not overly sold on. Tanner Gray is fine. He is what he is. I don't put him in the top 10% of the garage in the truck series. So I would much rather see, like a Luke Fenhouse get an opportunity, right? Or Tommy Baldwin's boy to get an opportunity with Tricon. I'd like to see something like that, but money talks, the BS walks, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, we talked about this last week on the show a little bit with Mark, I think, or was it the week before? Either way, we talked about this recently about how we know that Honeycutt is likely going to Toyota next season, and Bob Pockris was saying that it's likely going to be with Tricon. We just didn't have an idea about who he was going to fill in for at Tricon. Now the reports are saying that he's replacing Heim in the 11 right there. So my guess is that Honeycutt is going to probably be within that top truck. And I think really, if you look at Tricon for next year, my top two is going to be, I'm going to guess, between him and Gio Ruggiero being the top two dogs from that team next year.
And Gio's shown speed. So I'm all for that. I guess I look at the one truck and I'm kind of over the Tony experiment, and no offense to Tanner Gray. Maybe it's time to get a little more younger in that truck. But again, I'm not the one that writes the checks.
And as for your okay, before I bring up this next point to address what you were just saying, do you remember about the time when Chris Buescher was loaned out to JTG Daugherty Racing within the last decade, Rich?
Yes.
In Cup? You remember that at the time that Chris Buescher had a contract with Roush Fenway Racing and then went to JTG, they just loaned him out to that team. From as far as what I was hearing, I'm hearing that we're hearing a similar deal regarding Corey Heim and his status.
Well, and that could be. We've seen it with Casey Kane and Red Bull before he went to Hendrick. We've seen it with, somebody else just did it recently as well. Was it SVG last year? It's not uncommon, right? Connor Zilic this year with JRM and Xfinity. We've seen that. So, as long as Heim gets an opportunity, the question I have is where does he go from here? Because Denny Hamlin's locked up for a couple of years, right, at Toyota, and Joe Gibbs. Briscoe's not going anywhere. Ty Gibbs is not going anywhere. Christopher Bell's not going anywhere. Tyler Reddick's not going anywhere. I'd be hard-pressed that Bubba Wallace would be going anywhere. We've already talked about Riley Herbst. Maybe after next year, maybe that is a discussion at that point, and maybe that's what they're looking at is, hey, give Herbst another year, and we'll loan him out to Spire. But what vehicle is he going to be in at Spire? Does that mean Haley's on the way out? Because we've heard Haley's on the hot seat. And if that's the case, boy, poor Rodney Childers, maybe he wishes he was back with them and could have Corey Heim under the wheel. I don't know. I mean, we're obviously got to see, but I got to believe Haley is probably the guy in the hot seat if Spire is, in fact, the loaner team.
Well, I brought up that deal earlier because it was a Cup deal thing, and I think that's what we're going to be hearing again, that basically Corey Heim is going to go to Spire in the number 7 on loan from 2311 with the intent that he goes to maybe the 35 in 2027 to replace Riley Herbst.
Now, depending on what happens with Legacy and the whole lawsuit there, I could see an angle where Heim is there, right? I mean, we saw that with Carson Hocevar. And actually, it's funny. Carson Hocevar did a bunch of races for Legacy last year, Toyota, and then went to Spire. So, I mean, there's definitely some overlap, if you will.
Well,
but
the Legacy thing, that was when they were still with Chevy when Hocevar was filling in for them.
That's right. They were. They had announced the deal at that point, but they were still with Chevy. That's right. So we'll see. I mean, at this point, look, Zilic, isn't he under Toyota? Isn't he under Toyota?
No, Zilic is with Chevy and Trackhouse. Trackhouse is currently a Chevy affiliated team.
Yes. I couldn't remember if he was with Trackhouse or one of the other teams. So
I brought up the Buescher JTG one specifically because that's the rare case where it was between two different manufacturers doing the deal. Most of the recent ones we've seen, it's still been the same manufacturer. Like you were trying to figure out the other one from last year. You were thinking of Zane Smith when he had the Trackhouse contract still, but that was still between two Chevy teams. What I think is happening here right now, and this is not official, this is just rumors and what I've been hearing all across the social media platforms and all that, is that Heim is going to be loaned out towards Spire in the number 7 in the Cup Series, basically filling in Justin Haley's seat right there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Haley's going to be topping in the Xfinity ride next race in the 11th. So we'll see if Haley can resurrect his opportunities, because right now it looks like he's odd man out all the way across the board.
Oh, yeah. And even there was a clip that came out from SiriusXM NASCAR radio where they actually had the Spire owner right there, Jeff Dickerson. And he basically commented saying that that number 7 team has not been hitting their expectations this year. And they're still on the hottest of hot seats, to put it plainly.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's a wholesale change all the way around, crew chief, driver, the whole deal, because you look at the speed the 77s have with Hocevar, you look at what McDowell has done at times. The speed has been there. Maybe the finishes haven't, but lately they definitely have been trending in the right direction. Meanwhile, the 7 has not. So I'm with you. All I know is it's always Heim time. I love Jesse Love. I love, and it's always Heim time. That's where I'm at, man.
The only other possibility I could think of is mainly they do a kind of thing where I know Jimmy Johnson said that he still wanted to do a bunch of races next year, and he already said, too, that he maybe wanted to consider doing a split ride with another driver if he had the opportunity to do so. And I was thinking that if for some reason this Spire thing does not happen, that maybe Heim might either go to Xfinity with Sam Hunt, or maybe he might do the whole splitting a ride with Jimmy Johnson thing in the Cup Series for maybe a year. So we'll see, but I don't know about that because there's still the Legacy Motor Club Haas rumor, which I heard that if that goes through, that they're at least going to keep Cole Custer in that third potential charter for at least a year, if as part of the deal to make it go through.
That makes sense.
So that's that. But this next item right here is relevant towards this week, but it's official now. Stuart Friesen is not pursuing a driver playoff waiver, so he is not going to be in the driver playoffs for the Truck Series this year. And that shifts the cut line for the Truck Series race, because this is important. This is like the last race, I think, before the Truck Series playoffs begin. So right now, that basically puts it so that Jake Garcia holds the last driver playoff spot, but only by like about a 13-point margin over Gio Ruggiero and Ben Rhodes, who are both right behind them. So
Ben Rhodes will find a way to get in, man. Mark my words. This is a good track for Ben Rhodes, too, but mark my words. The wily veteran will find a way to break his way into the playoffs. And look, this isn't shocking. You know, when we talked about his injury the last time I was on, I said, look, he's done for the year. Like, there is no doubt in my mind he is done for the year. Now, I hoped that maybe they would put Honeycutt in the truck, which is what they're going to do, and at least get them a chance at the driver's champion or the owner's championship, or at least a solid finish in the owner's playoffs, right? So I don't know.
Honeycutt is all but locked into the Truck Series playoffs. All he has to do this race is finish 34th or better, and he's automatically in.
Right, but he's still going to be in the 52 from this point forward, right? Wasn't that the deal?
For the rest of the season. Right.
So the 52, though, can still compete for the owner's championship, right? Separate from Caden Honeycutt competing for the driver's championship. So this works out well for both teams, in my opinion. I see no reason why Friesen would want to even muck around with I mean, at this point, I feel like he's got to be hoping and praying that he can be back to 100% for next season. I mean, this is not a injury to take lightly.
Yeah, truly. But yeah, that confirmation about the driver playoff waiver that he's not taking it, which we did suspect he was probably not going to pursue it on this podcast for a few weeks. But yeah, official now. It affects where the Truck Series playoffs is and actually adds some stakes and potential strategy towards this week's truck race there. That's that. So, should we hit any more news stories or move on towards covering this week's race?
Let's
What do you
move
think,
on.
Rich?
Let's move on because the rest of the news stories is a bunch of hubbub and guessing, in my opinion.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about Richmond right here. So, we're going short track racing once again. The so-called action track. I mean, last year we saw the whole action between Austin Dillon, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin right there in pretty controversial fashion, as it was, Rich. But we got ourselves another short track race. We did have one not too long ago with Iowa Speedway, which is a pretty good comparable towards this week's track. Same rules package being used. Layout is not exactly the same, but fairly close in some aspects. So you'd say probably that this could end up being another track position race. Pit strategy is probably going to shuffle the field.
I would argue Iowa, with the progressive banking, gave us more action than what we'll see this weekend. I don't think – I felt like Iowa was a good show. As far as races this year with strategy and the competition on track and all of that, I got to give a hat tip to Iowa. And I think the progressive banking played into that. The banking is similar, but it's not progressive at Richmond, i.e. meaning it slightly changes at a progressive bank. You can't see with my hand, right? Like it changes from, say, 10 up to 12 degrees. Very similar to what you see at a dirt track. And we see that type of banking at Vegas. We see it at we had it at Bristol. I don't know if it still is after they ground it down, but we've seen this around, and it's usually led to some decent racing. I know people hated when Bristol was no longer a bump them out of the way type of venue, but overall, I think it's led to better racing as far as passing lanes, finding a line, that sort of thing. We're not going to have that at Richmond. All these short tracks, though, Sean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't care if it's Bristol. I don't care if it's Martinsville. I don't care if it's Richmond. I don't care which one we go to. Track position and strategy are going to matter. And see, last year is a little bit misleading because we had the option tire. Yeah, so, like, we saw where Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez really played the option tire well as far as when they used it, when they stayed on the harder tire, how they used that to gain track position, how they were able to keep the track position. We're not going to have that this weekend. It's going to be more like you said we've seen at Iowa or what we saw at Bristol earlier this spring. And oddly enough, normally we go to Richmond twice. We don't this year. It's only one time. So this will be the only event we have at Richmond. I'm not holding my breath. Now, I did find it interesting that the last two Richmond races were overtime finishes, yet the previous four were not, all with the next-gen car. So, but track position is going to matter. We're probably going to have, depending on the cautions, anywhere from 20, maybe on the low side of 10 cars on the lead lap. Again, track position, place differential. You're going to find, we were able to find a couple in the 30s last year with Barry, Bell, and Briscoe. I don't know that we'll see that again this year. That hasn't really been typical. You've kind of had to target guys in the mid-20s to move up. Again, things can happen in practice. Someone screws up in practice, misses a corner, hits the wall, has a mechanical problem. They start in the rear. Sure, we'll get chalky with it and chase one of those drivers. But overall, we're going to have to hit on the couple of dominators, probably picking drivers starting in the top 5, maybe top 7 or 10. And we're going to have to get lucky on some of the place differentials. And the sad thing is two of the teams that have historically done well here, and I know you've kind of got them highlighted in your list with Trackhouse and RCR. Those are two teams I've been shying away from with the ECR motors. And I don't know that it's a good plan to fade them this week or if it's a good plan to use them, because the driver history for Busch, Dillon, Chastain, and Suarez has all been pretty good at this track, including last year. But we've talked about it before. Those teams are missing speed that we've seen in the past. Now, Joey Logano's also run well here. He hasn't exactly shown a lot of speed overall, but I feel like Team Penske, at least as a team, Josh Berry included, has. So I'm kind of torn on how I want to approach this weekend because I'm very apprehensive looking at what I thought would be slam dunk options from a driver history perspective.
I do think that you hit it on the head right there with knowing that dominators are going to be a very big factor for this race.
For sure.
There are plenty of laps that are going to be available for grabs for drivers to lead, meaning plenty of points just for that. I do think place differential can be circumstantial. It depends on which drivers qualify towards the back, which ones towards the middle, which ones towards the front. Qualifying is going to play a pretty big role, and the finishes from last week's race at Watkins Glen right there determines the qualifying order. Now, drivers have said for a track like this that it's definitely better in order to go later on in qualifying order because it allows teams in order to see what the best lines may be and maybe even track conditions align better with those that run later in qualifying. So we do have to keep an eye on qualifying, particularly where drivers start as it is, and then go from there.
Here's a curveball too, Sean. The weather's not looking great on Friday. So we may have qualifying and practice rained out. Like, I think that is a very realistic possibility, which means the field's going to be set by the equation, which will take into finishing order the last couple of races as a significant portion of that. We may get lucky, and I don't know if it's lucky or good, right? Because it'll be chalky when I'm just going to throw out a name. I'm trying to think of someone who hasn't finished well the last couple of weeks, but somebody I don't know where Josh Berry's finished the last couple of weeks. I know he had a bad finish a couple of weeks ago. But say Josh Berry ends up back in the 30s again, where he started last year.
If it is set by the equation, he is going to end up there because he finished 35th during the last race at Watkins Glen right there. But where I think that's going to make it interesting, if that is the case too, is you are going to have a few drivers out there that are going to easily set themselves up for chalk opportunities, particularly Brad Kay, Ty Gibbs, and Kyle Larson.
So let me ask you, I saw on DraftKings, they had a questionable tag next to Brad Keselowski. Is there an injury I missed or something?
It's not an injury. It's the fact that he's on baby watch currently.
Oh, okay.
So Corey LaJoie is brought in as the reserve driver for Brad in case he cannot race. So that's what's happening right there with Brad Kay.
Okay. They really need Brad Kay to get a win, man. They really need Brad Kay to get a win.
Yeah, this week and even next week at Daytona are two opportunities for him. And with how fast that RFK has been, they've been surging in speed, especially that number 6 team the past couple of weeks. I do think that's someone that we may have to keep an eye on right there. Now, spoiler alert for later, he is not on my DFS driver picks for today, but that's mostly just because the questionable tag right there with even if he's going to be racing this week. That's really my main reasoning right there. Otherwise, he would be right there within the thick of it. But getting back towards the overall strategy right there, for betting purposes, there's only going to be pretty much just a few drivers I'd consider, and it's going to mostly lean towards drivers that start higher up in the field. Unless you're I'd say this is not a bad race in order to do some in-race betting as it stands, because pit strategy is going to shape up how the second half of this race is going to go too.
You know, it's different. When we looked at Indy, we knew strategy, fuel mileage, Michigan 2 is all going to come into play. And fuel mileage can come into play any given weekend. We saw that at Iowa, right? Yep. But at the big tracks where you can pit and not go a lap down, it completely changes your options for strategy because you don't have to worry. You can do things on your own schedule and not necessarily go a lap down, which in turn gives you an opportunity to flip stages, get track position, that sort of stuff. We won't have that this weekend. What we will have, though, is teams not locked in. It's your get time, right? So they're going to turn around, and don't be shocked if somebody like a Ty Gibbs takes a massive swing with a strategy call to sacrifice stage points or something like that to try to get track position to start the final stage, for example.
Oh, yeah. And that we saw it last year, RCR. I could still see them doing something like that too, or maybe even Front Row Motorsports with like either Todd Gilliland or Zane Smith also doing that too.
Which it's tough at Richmond, right? Because if you pit under green, you're going to go a lap down or two. So getting the wave around doesn't really help a whole lot if you're starting at the end of the field on older tires. Like this is a whole different animal, and it's really good. And that's why I like your call about live in race action, because depending on how the cautions fall, at Iowa, we didn't have anything through the first two stages for cautions, basically. And then because of all the cautions in that final stage on restarts, it completely flipped the script. I mean, a couple of drivers really got hung out to dry on their strategies. I think Chase Briscoe was one of them, and maybe Austin Cindric, because of how the cautions fell. And it just played to the hand of Brad Keselowski and William Byron, who ended up being top three, both of them.
Yeah, pretty much right there. Even though Byron was just holding on for dear life at the end.
But it worked.
It did. He got past those lap cars, and they basically set up a blockade where they were not going to get past those lap cars unless they started falling in line right there, even though both Briscoe and Brad were faster, and so was Blaney at Iowa. Way faster than Byron.
Yep, but didn't matter. The fastest car doesn't always win. That's the frustrating thing. Like, we take a lot of pride in giving you the fastest cars and best chances to win, but this is auto racing. The best car doesn't always win. That's just the nature of the beast.
That is really true as it is. Before we get into our actual driver picks for this week, let's go through our notables and part-timers list right here. So I'm going to do a little curveball this week, Rich. Instead of you reading the list, I'm reading the truck list this week. I think it's only fitting just because I'm actually going to be the one covering trucks this week. Surprise, surprise. So
yes, sir.
Here we go. Brent Cruz is in the number 1 for Tricon Garage right there. Stephen Malozzi is in the number 2 for Rome Brothers Racing. Nick Lights is in the 02 for Young's Motorsports. Sammy Smith is in the number 7 for Spire Motorsports. Remember, they're not running the 07 anymore, just the 7, the 71, and the 77. Christian Eckes is making a return to the truck series this week with Bacanali Hilgerman Racing in the number 16 truck. So that's a big deal right there. Clayton Green is in the number 22 for Rome Brothers Racing. Matthew Gold is in the number 41 for Nice Motorsports. Now, starting this week, Andres Perez is in the number 44 for Nice Motorsports after driving for Spire Motorsports for most of the season right there. Bailey Curry is in the number 45 for Nice Motorsports. Caden Honeycutt will do his first race in the number 52 for Halmar Friesen Racing. Luke Fenhouse is in the number 66 for Thor Sport Racing. Ryan Roulette is in the number 67 for Freedom Racing Enterprises. Caleb Costner is in the number 74 for Mike Harmon Racing. Corey LaJoie is back in the truck series in the number 77 for Spire Motorsports. Patrick Starpoli is in the number 84 for Cook Racing Technologies. And then this one's also interesting, too. We've got Carson Quapple doing a race in the truck series in the number 97 in a second CR7 Motorsports entry, being teammates to Grant Enfinger this week.
I would say that's what's interesting to me, because Grant Enfinger ran so well here last year. I am really curious about Carson Quapple, and I think the call out on Christian Eckes is huge. Sammy Smith also. I mean, these are all guys that are racing up in the Xfinity series that we're seeing, kind of take a step down, if you will. Corey LaJoie is also in that ballpark. So I'm very curious to see how Guapo, the Spire trucks run, and the number 16 McAnally Hilgerman Racing Machine, because these are all guys that I would say would be typical front runners if they were weekly in equipment like this weekly.
Oh, 100%. And just a note right there, the number 91 McAnally Hilgerman Racing entry for Jack Wood has been completely withdrawn, as Wood is not racing due to injury this week. So do keep that in mind for those looking for Jack Wood's name for DFS this week.
I don't remember so many entries when I used to watch racing, man. It just seems like this is just becoming. I mean, you pointed out Zilich earlier this year. We've seen it in the Cup Series. It's just odd to me. We never used to see, and now it's I don't want to say super common or common, but it's a little more frequent than I recall.
Yeah, it has been happening a little bit more often as it is. Not a good look. Not a good look. I'll just say that much.
And you mentioned Xfinity is off this week, but we do have a couple of interesting names in the Cup Series this week, of which both are reasonably priced for DFS, so I think they're worth keeping in mind. You've got Jesse Love in the number 33 Richard Childress Racing machine, and then Corey Heim, as we previously mentioned, is in the number 67 with 2311. I know 2311 hasn't been phenomenal with Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick at Richmond, but boy, their car owner has been borderline absolutely unstoppable in the next-gen car. I mean, 2 wins, 5 top 5s in 6 races. He had 1 bad luck race. Otherwise, the man has basically been up front the entire time we're at Richmond.
Talking about Denny Hamlin right there, in case you didn't get the gist for those of us that are listening or watching right there.
Kind of buried the lead
there. Now, before we get into the actual driver picks, as a reminder, go over to fantasyguru.com, get any of the NFL packages in the draft guide right now. You can also go forth and get access to NFL training camp, which will get you into tip-top shape in order to be able to win big playing fantasy football this year at fantasyguru.com. Other packages are available. MLB content is still available for the rest of MLB season. We got the MVP, Platinum, VIP, or all-in packages. Be sure to hit up fantasyguru.com at support@fantasyguru.com to give you the best possible deal. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're just enjoying the show. Let us know how we're doing. Leave comments, even in Discord. We love to hear from you. So go forth and do right that right there, right now.
And I believe, depending on the package, you may get MLB included. There was a couple of packages I noticed we were throwing in MLB for you. So if you're into baseball, at least take a look there.
Yeah, we love a good package deal. We love it right here.
Who doesn't want a deal? We all want a deal.
Exactly. You know what? Let's give the people a bit of a deal right here. So here's the deal. We're going to give them driver picks. They're going to plug them right in. They're going to follow up with us in the Fantasy Guru Discord right there, and they're going to win. Deal?
Sounds good to me, man.
All right, let's get into it. Top price picks to watch. For me, I'm pretty much just going to tell you right now that I'm just pretty much all in on Joe Gibbs Racing for the most part with this race.
I'm with you for what it's worth.
Because I got Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Chase Briscoe right there. Hamlin's won twice in the next-gen car, as mentioned, at this very track right there. Christopher Bell's been incredibly solid with 5 top 10s and 6 races in the next-gen car. And then Chase Briscoe, even though the numbers don't show it as much because he's been with a different team, and this is his first Richmond race with Joe Gibbs Racing, that number 19 team in the past when they had a different driver named Martin Truex Jr., boy, were they scary good at this track before too, Rich. I gotta like Briscoe, especially with his recent hot streak being incredible right there, Rich.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was in the middle before the show was writing the article, and I pointed out in the article, said, hey, you don't see Martin Truex, you don't see Briscoe in the by the number section. I almost put Martin Truex's numbers in there because he consistently was up there. Now, he didn't always have all the finishes, but when you look at running in the top 15, you look at average running position, you look at percent of fast laps, all these things, the 19 and the Martin Truex ride were always near there. And honestly, last year, Briscoe was one of the biggest movers, moving up from 32nd to 18th. So I'm with you. I think Briscoe, in fact, my 3 guys are the same as yours. I do want to mention one other driver, though. I do want to throw Chris Buescher out there. At 9,000, he's a bit of a bargain considering he's been basically a top 5 driver the last 2 or 3 races here. They also are still hunting that win. So I don't want to sleep on Buescher. And obviously qualifying will come into play, but I'm 100% with you with the JGR machines. And I do want to give a little bit of a hat tip there to Chris Buescher. I had a real hard time between him and Briscoe.
I currently lead Briscoe over Buescher as it is right now, but I do think that Buescher is a driver that I think is playable this week. He has won at this track before the next gen car in July 2023. So if it's the time frame right there as it is, and we know that Buescher, he's on that playoff pressure because he holds that final spot in the Cup Series playoffs over his teammate Ryan Preece, and he's still within range in order to pass Alex Bowman on points still too. So we cannot forget about that, and it's going to be close.
And I think he was second in the spring race last year, I believe. I'm going off of memory. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm almost
He was
positive
ninth in the spring race.
So when was he second? Because it wasn't last fall. Must have been the fall race the year before then.
Yeah, he won in July 2023, and last August when they last raced there, he finished in the 18th position. 2022 during August, he finished in the 3rd spot right there, Rich.
Okay. That's what it was, 3rd. So, it's going to come down to cost and qualifying position, but I don't mind the Briscoe over Buescher. I just don't want to lose sight of Buescher this week.
True. I do think that's a fair point right there, as is any of the Hendrick drivers that are up there in price too, because you can never count them out on any given week. Just going to throw that out there too. Getting into the mid-tier drivers to watch right here. So I basically have 3 right here. I have Ross Chastain because believe it or not, he's shown some incredible consistency at the short tracks, finishing within the top 15 or top 10 at most of them. I like that as it is, and he seems to find his way towards that upper half of the pack right there during most weeks. But I also got Josh Berry because this has been a pretty good track for Josh Berry. Team Penske at times, as you mentioned, does show a little bit of speed at this particular track right there. Remember, Joey Logano was in a position to win this race last year until, Austin Dillon happened, but there you go. And then because, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to make an internet meme out of this at some point, but here I go yet again mentioning Ryan Preece as a DFS option right there. I mean, short track racing, Ryan Preece comes from a short track background. It's like a broken record with me, but he continues to just produce each and every week right there. Give me some Ryan Preece as well.
So I almost had the exact same 3, and I'm with you on Ross. Like, he has just consistently run well here. I'm just really struggling with the lack of speed from Trackhouse overall, Sean. And I know for mid-tier options, that's not the end of the world. We can kind of manage around that, if you will. But I'm with you on Berry, and I read an article this week that Berry and his team had circled Richmond since last year. This was a big track. Berry moved up from 30th to 11th last year in this fall race. For whatever reason, Berry is really looking forward to this, and dare I say it, they may have sold out and they already have a win. So, I mean, it's not like, they're on the bubble or the pressure that Buescher is, or even Brad Kay or Preece. But I got to tell you, I'm basically all in. You'll see it when the bets. I'm kind of all in on Josh Berry this weekend. And I do buy into these storylines when these drivers are like, I circled this race. Look, the whole team, if that's the case and they're openly admitting it, then I'm telling you the team put every effort in, and I will be shocked if Berry isn't a significant factor. And he's led some laps. And to your point about Logano, he almost had this one last year. The previous race he led laps. It wasn't that long ago that he led 222 laps. So I'm with you on Team Penske and Logano. This is actually a good bounce-back race for them. I don't know that I want to use him in DFS because we haven't seen the speed, but I think we got to keep that in mind. And that plays into the whole Berry thing. It's comparable equipment. It's a satellite organization there with Wood Brothers, with Team Penske. And I'm with you on Berry. So Berry, Preece, and I got to tell you, I don't know if I'm there with Ross, but I very easily could go Brad Kay in this group.
My only thing with Brad is that he's priced up within the top price drivers this week, so I wasn't going to count him necessarily.
I thought he was 8,700.
Nah, he's 9,200 this week on DK.
Oh, I misread it. Okay, my bad. I thought he was 8,700. So yes, take out Brad. I don't know who I was looking at then that was 8,700. Let me look, because now
8,700 is Reddick.
Oh, yep, that makes sense. I don't know if I'd pay up for him. I'd rather bet on him. So fair enough. I guess we're all on Ross. We're all 3 doing it. I really don't like this tier, to be honest, Sean. I'm good with Berry and Preece, and I think they're both values. Outside of that, I really don't like this tier. I'd rather have some studs. I'd rather go stars and scrubs.
Honestly, I kind of don't mind some of the options in this tier, to be honest with you. I actually think that Kyle Busch is a driver that I think
Fair.
can put in some results right there. We also Austin Dillon, even despite his controversial win last year, he normally does run pretty well at this track. This is like one of the few tracks that he does consistently run
Agreed.
a little bit better than average at, too.
My concern is the same concerns I have with Ross, I have with Kyle, right? It's the lack of horsepower. And I don't, maybe we see it. If we get practice in qualifying, I could completely change because I did consider both Busch and Dillon. I think Dillon's actually in the next tier for pricing, but I could be wrong. If not, he's
7,300. 7,300.
Okay, so he's at the very bottom of this tier. He's a value then. So I very easily could look at Dillon because you're spot on. He has both he and Busch have consistently run well here, regardless of their team, to be honest. So I'm with you. I am really nervous about these teams with the ECR motors, man. Especially the more I thought about AJ Allmendinger griping and the overall lack of speed from both the teams. I just don't know. Where, like you said earlier, RFKs keep showing speed. We know JGR and Hendrick are going to show speed. I'm kind of on the stars and scrubs approach this week. I really am. But you're going to have to use guys in this middle tier. And I'm with you, Sean, on Barry. I really am. I'm maybe a little too overexposed on Barry, but I'm kind of all in on Barry.
I'm also just going to throw out there real quick, too, that the other two names that I do have my eye on as well. This first one is not because of the numbers, but because of the equipment is Alex Bowman right there.
That's fair.
I do think that the equipment there, because it's a Hendrick-related car, can actually, depending on where he starts, he can pay off as a DFS option, as does Bubba Wallace right there, too, because he has shown some positive results at this track before, too, and he's also priced within that mid 7K range as it is, too.
Bubba has been underpriced for about the last month. I mean, this goes back before the Indy win, and even after the Indy win, they have not been giving him enough credit for how he's been running. So I'm with you there. Bubba was kind of on my radar. So was Reddick, for that matter. And simply because Reddick's probably safe, but they got to figure something out.
Honestly, I would just straight up use Bubba over Reddick this week.
Would you?
Reddick has not been exactly that good at the short tracks this year, whereas
he hasn't.
Whereas Bubba's at least shown a little bit of speed on the short track somewhat this year, too. I mean, Reddick has yet to score a top 10 this season on a short track. So that right there is telling.
He's also due, because that's pretty pathetic for that team. I don't know what's going on over there at 2311, but Bubba has been looking like the better car consistently every week. Yeah,
give me Bubba over Reddick if you talk to me right now.
All right, fair enough. What do you got for your sleepers then here, Sean?
This tier, I know you said that you didn't like the mid tier. To be honest, this tier I'm not overly impressed with right here with the.
I agree with you. I agree with you, man. It's slim pickings, in my opinion. It's slim pickings between the two of them. So I'm with you.
But I basically got John Hunter Nemechek right there because I think as far as price per versus performance is concerned, I think he is a little bit underpriced overall with the speeds he's been showing everywhere as it stands. So 6,200, give me some JHN right there. And you know what? I'm going right there and doing what you usually say. It's Heim time. We got to go with Corey Heim this week, I think, because equipment-wise, he's much better than all the other drivers right there. And he's also doing double duty this week, being Trucks and Cup, which not many drivers can say that they're doing it. So
and that matters. And I'm with you. That matters. So I like both those calls. I'm 100% with you so far, Sean.
And then I also, relying on the Team Penske dynamic, he just barely slips into this tier. But I think Austin Cindric is another driver that I got my eye on, actually, too, because of his overall performance on the short tracks this season based on the salary where he is. He's 6,900 or so. Yeah, 6,900. He's got 2 top 15s at short tracks this season, including a 12th place run at Iowa, where he also led quite a few laps right there. he got a little bit bit by strategy as it is, but not for lack of speed overall right there. So I do think that Austin Cindric, even though he hasn't shown the greatest of history right there, this could make him a bit of a sneaky play, especially equipment-wise, that I think I have my eye on for that reason right there, Rich.
You could talk me into Cindric. I forgot about how quick he was at Iowa and kind of got shafted when he was one of the guys, like I said, that just because how the cautions fell, he really got shafted in the deal. I'm with you on Nemechek. I'm with you on Heim time. I really am. I kind of like Jesse Love with RCR this week. He's 5,200, so he's super cheap. A little bit lower risk depending on where he qualifies. So I do kind of like Love as an option. And I'm going to throw another name at you. Eric Jones has surprisingly done well from a place differential standpoint. He hasn't been overly fast, but he seems to just rattle off some okay finishes. So if we're going to do a stars and scrubs lineup and we need a little bit of that place differential, I feel like Eric Jones might be an option for us.
You know what? It is going to be a little bit of qualifying dependent for me to use Jones, but I think I can be talked into using him. I'm not fully against it. And same can be said for Jesse Love, but I just want to see where he stands on the speed and qualifying charts though before I lock it in. But I can be talked into him as well too. So I do not mind your calls right there, Rich.
All right. So what do you got for your core DFS picks then, Sean?
DFS core 4. I've got Denny Hamlin at 11,000 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel. Josh Berry at 8,000 on DraftKings and 8,200 on FanDuel. Ryan Preece, yeah, I'm doing it yet again. 7,600 on DraftKings. And then really, this shocked me right here. He's only 6,500 on FanDuel, which puts him in the value tier right this week at FanDuel, Rich, which is quite crazy. And then I'm wrapping it up with Heim time. We're going right there with that in the core as well. 6,700 on DraftKings, 6,200 on FanDuel. It really is wild when you think about Ryan Preece's price on FanDuel, though, because he's only 300 more than Corey Heim this week on FanDuel, Rich. Isn't that wild?
That's crazy to me. I'm with you. Like I said, I'm kind of on the stars and scrubs. I want Hamlin. I want Bell. I want Berry. I want Preece. Now, you can still build a lineup. You will have to go to an Eric Jones. You will have to go to a Corey Heim. You'll have to go to a Jesse Love. You'll have to go to a John Hunter Nemechek and potentially one other kind of in that range. If you drop down to, say, Jesse Love, you could turn around and get in like a Ross Chastain level. So, but I'm kind of all in on Hamlin, Bell, Berry, and Preece. And I'd love to build a lineup around those four guys.
Nice. I like that. I can dig that as a core right there. Getting into the betting core fours for winners right here. I got Denny Hamlin at plus 370, Christopher Bell at plus 450, Chase Briscoe at plus 900, and you know what? I am going to throw Brad Keselowski in there at plus 1,200 in order to win as part of my betting core four. Who do you got this week?
Boy, I like the Brad and Briscoe calls. I went Hamlin and Bell. They seem like the obvious choices. I actually threw Logano in there at 10-1, Sean. Maybe I'm trying to jinx Logano. I don't know. I'd rather see Brad win it than Joey, but I can't get over that Joey just seems to do well at Richmond on a regular basis. And I'm doubling up here, but give me Josh Berry at 40-1. I just think the odds are ridiculous that I'm willing to throw a McChicken on it, a buck, because I know we'll get to our McChicken bets, but I'm doubling up here. He's my McChicken bet too, Sean.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. He's loving that bet.
I am. I just think it's way off base at 40-1, and we'll talk about it, but I'd like to get some action on Berry in some way, shape, or form.
You know, I'm just going to say that I think I'm right there with you in some respects in regards to Berry as it stands. I'll get into my other bets and calls right here, too, because I got a bit of a list this week right here, Rich.
You do.
So, top 10 bets, I got about 4 drivers right here. Ryan Preece for top 10 at plus 110. Ross Chastain at a top 10 at plus 110. Austin Dillon for a top 10 at plus 135. And yeah, to agree with you, Josh Berry at plus 150 for a top 10. Top 5s, I got Chase Briscoe for a top 5 at plus 120. Brad Keselowski at a top 5 at plus 160. I'm on one head-to-head bet right here, and I don't know if you'll find this a bit of a Balder-ish kind of call, but I got Chris Buescher versus Josh Berry, and Josh Berry winning the matchup at plus 135 right there, Rich. What do you think of that one?
I kind of dig it, man.
All right. Now getting into, I got some group winner bets right here too. So for DraftKings Sportsbook Group B winner, this is between Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, and Chase Elliott. I've got Chase Briscoe at plus 275 in order to win the group. Now for Group C, I also got two names right there to consider. This is between Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, and Tyler Reddick. I'm going with either Brad K at plus 210 or Ross Chastain at plus 285. Now, if you parlay either of these group winner bets, you can parlay Briscoe and Keselowski to win their respective groups together at plus 1,062, or you can do a parlay between Briscoe and Chastain winning the groups at plus 1,343 right there. And giving it up for my McBold/McChicken call of the week, I did almost go with Josh Berry as you did there, Rich. He was basically the other driver, but I decided to throw it in there because maybe it might land one of these weeks, but give me Ryan Preece in order to win at 28-1 right there, Rich, plus 2,800.
Boy, I didn't realize this, but I sure am obsessed with RFK this weekend. We already noted the McChicken bet at Barry 40-1 to win. I like the Preece call. I like that a lot. I'm also on Chris Buescher for a top 10, minus 105. Josh Berry for a top 10 at plus 150. And Ryan Preece for a top 10 at plus 110. I know they're not exciting, but that's kind of where I fell this week, Sean.
You know what? Technically, I've named at least two of those on my list right there, too, with Berry and Preece. So watch out for those listening. Watch out. We say it all the time.
When we overlap,
As for Chris Buescher getting the top 10, I think that's possible, but I'm not 100% all the way there yet without seeing a little bit more data first.
Fair enough. Like I said, he's been there. He needs it. He's run well here in this car. We've seen him run well on the short track. So I felt like 105 was worth it. It's close enough to even money that I'd go that route.
Fair enough. Like I said, it's plausible enough that I think I can consider it. I'm just not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger just yet on it.
Fair enough, man. I don't think the odds are going to get way better for him for a top 10 if he qualifies well. I think that's a bet you can wait on. Barry, you probably want to take a shot at early. If he qualifies 15th, 18th, something like that, I'm assuming those odds will come down a little bit. He could qualify inside the top 10. That would shock me. Preece is probably not going to move a ton. He's probably going to be around that minus 105 to plus 110 no matter what. So I could totally support waiting on the Buescher bet. Absolutely.
Yeah. I do think that it's possible because the thing is about RFK is that they could go either way when it comes to qualifying. They could either qualify right towards the front or they're going to qualify deep because we've seen both ends of that between all three of their drivers this year because we've seen Preece sometimes end up really not doing good in qualifying but being really good on race trim and then just drives through the field that way. Buescher at times has been like that too, but at times he's also qualified towards the front as well. And then Brad...
He's been one of the better qualifiers of the three.
Yeah. Brad's been all over the place too. He's been towards both the front and the back on short tracks this year, qualifying-wise. So we don't know how it's going to go.
That wraps up our betting and DFS thoughts. Sean, you're going to be covering trucks this weekend on the cheat sheet. I'll be covering Cup on the cheat sheet. We're doing a little flip-flopping the next couple of weeks. I'm assuming you'll get the podcast up tomorrow. We'll record this on Thursday. I'm assuming sometime Friday. Sean will have this drop. Feel free to check out Training Camp. That'll be coming out Friday, probably shortly after Sean gets this out there for everybody. Sean, any other closing thoughts or wisdom you want to leave with us all?
Well, I'm just going to say be sure in order to participate in some in-race live betting because I do think that may be the way to go in order to really get a bet that's likely to hit if you're trying to track the winners this week. But overall, hopefully we see some action on this track and hopefully our subscribers and hopefully those that watch or listen to this, they can hit some action with making some money right there too, Rich. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Hey, we've been doing fairly well. Let's try to ride the momentum while we can, right? So, and as you pointed out, when we overlap, there's usually something there. So keep that in mind. Hey, on behalf of the Elite Plus Network and FantasyGuru.com, please go over to FantasyGuru.com, click subscribe, check out the different packages, see if there's a good fit for you. We do have some promos out there. On behalf of everyone at FantasyGuru.com, I am Richmond Maletto this weekend since we are at Richmond. Don't follow me on X don't follow me on X unless you really want to at Fantasy Bosco. Please do follow Sean on X at Sean E247. On behalf of Sean Engel, we wish you luck this weekend. We're getting down to the nitty and gritty, Sean. We're about to hit the playoffs, and with football on the horizon, it's gonna get busy for everybody. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time.